Councillor Sarank, if you're referring to the Ngāti Whakaui, yeah, that was undertaken through a plan change of the last operative plan, so that's been transferred into the proposed district plan as a zoning, so it won't lapse.
Thank you. Yes, no,
Ross, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we only have one bridge over the Puringa stream. I'm talking of emergencies, but we don't have the Eastern Arterial. If we lost access across the bridge at Sala Street, how do we get access in an emergency? I'm talking about a major earthquake. How do we get access to the east?
It's always a dangerous game playing with emergencies because, you know, an emergency that will damage the Puringa Bridge, it will be of such a significant scale, I imagine that, you know, it will have other significant effects in the district too. Now, if we do want to, let's say if the bridge is down too, the Puringa Bridge can be, you know, replaced with temporary, you know, facilities at any given time. But as I said, you know, it is not something that you know I can reasonably predict. And bearing in mind that the bridge probably is designed to accommodate a significant event. So, but if it goes down, there are engineering ways to bridge the Puringa stream, you know, in a short space of time.
thank you. And Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, we've got 24 million coming from transit. The previous council was advised that one of the costings for Tēnai Road was 70 million. Last costing was 100 million. What guarantee have you got to get the extra money? And the other item is concerning Ferry Springs Road. We don't want another mistake on Tēnai Road like Ferry Springs Road, where the funding ran out halfway, you know, nearly at the left the last 200 metres single lane, and caused a bottleneck with the roundabout at Nongata. So, have we got guarantees that we will get the other 76 million, and at what period of time?
I mean, the guarantees that can be given are all embedded into the intention of the government's, you know, GPS, the government policy statement to invest in the land transport system of New Zealand. Let's assuming that the forecasted investment in this corridor is fundable by the government, then the vehicle to be used to promote and secure that investment is the development of the detailed business case undertaken under the investment logic mapping, as I mentioned earlier. I mentioned quite cautiously earlier the figures between 20 and 90 million dollars, and I want to be very clear about that, is that these are high-level estimates. Until the detailed business cases are constructed by NZTA and specialists, then the cost of Tēnai would be what the cost is going to be. If it's going to be $100 million or $150 million or $50 million, it will be dictated by the development of the business case. And NZTA, having committed to develop Tēnai as a primary state highway corridor from the east into the city, they are legally obligated to meet the levels of service assigned to a state highway system. So they cannot offer us half a cake, you know, for the price of full cake. So, you know, it is their responsibility to make sure they meet the level of service the state highway is meant to meet.
Mr. Berriman Kim.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Just checking, first of all, actually, really my questions, and forgive me, but this may well come in with our spatial plan discussion as well, too, because in particular, I'm interested. My assessment of the situation is that the NZTA decision cannot be overturned, and I do take on board what Councillor Sturt was saying, the importance of engagement with locals actually affected. My question, and I'm quite happy to take guidance as to whether this is more spatial plan question or for this discussion, is in terms of, as Councillor Sturt outlined, what happens to the 80%? What's the treatment that this council applies to reserve land? What's the treatment that the council applies to land that has been obtained for these processes, because we've already heard previously in this meeting about selling properties for market value, and whilst that might be worthwhile for the council to address a balancing the books issue, how equitable and how fair is that for the people from whom it was obtained from? And I think there's some wider strategic and philosophical discussions that we have to go to. So in terms of being succinct, my question is about how we treat the land that is now no longer required post the NZTA decision. I'm happy to take that answer here or in the spatial plan discussion, because I don't know.
Madam Chair,
Yes, that's really the government's decision, isn't it?
It is, but I think
Not
that probably
ours.
the important statement for us to make is that we would be encouraging NZTA to treat it with some urgency. You know, this
And I
has
think-
been a barrier for some time, and it's important that we get resolution and we get that land considered and moved as quickly as possible.
Yes, even though that decision is not ours to make, there is an opportunity for us to inform the government as to what we believe would be very helpful to ensure that people who should be in the know are informed and can act. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I seconded the motion, and I'll start off with a question. Do we want to ignore iwi's desire not to give in or sell? Many of us councillors were in this chamber a couple of years ago when it was full to capacity, when the people from out there marched on council. Wasn't our decision. We all knew that NZTA had the final decision, and that's what I'm supporting and seconding the motion. But for me, no, I want to focus on the 45 years of hurt and pain that the people of Ngāputa and the iwi out there have had to go through. They've actually been through hell. So, I can still reflect back to that morning when we were here and there were elders and children were all here looking to us, our council, to help them. What can we do? 45 years of pain, as has been raised earlier. And JP commented on that it's cost us about $100,000 already doing what other than defending our community. I think what NZTA have come up with now is something that we should support, and I want to support. For me also, I think, still focusing on the hurt and the mama that people have felt, go on down, if you haven't been to the exhibition already, go to the exhibition at Rove where Michael State's got his exhibition there, and it portrays it beautifully. So yes, 45 years of impediment, I don't want to ignore any longer. I want to support the removal of and support the partnership proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Ms Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question, but before that, he mihi aroha kia koutou te hapuri I tai atina nā mai, ki te tautoko I tēnei kaupapa tino nui. Just to acknowledge all of the members of the community, and particularly the mana whenua, Ngāti Te Roro Te Rangi and Ngāti Hurunga Te Rangi who have come here today. And although we've said it's an administrative decision today, let's not forget that this is actually also a very historical an important decision for those communities that have been affected by this designation for over a generation. But turning to my question, it's in relation to the proposed district plan and what the consequences are of the lifting of the designation on, say, reworking the DP. I note that there's development plans within the DP that actually are premised on, or the staging of those are premised on the REA going forward. So what are the timeframes for the council around doing those changes and perhaps even renegotiating with those developers?
Through Madam Chair, I think the key thing to recognise is the uplifting of the designation simply removes the corridor through the district plan. What we have in the district plan obviously is underlying zonings that exist through those areas. So for a large tranche of the land involved where the route follows, the underlying zoning is residential or rural 1. So that comes into effect as the designation is removed. So if, depending on the ownership, and this goes back to the previous question, that then opens up the questions of if the land is disposed of and or the original owners receive it or a new owner receives it, it is zoned for particular purposes and it would be available to develop. As far as timing of other developments, I'm not quite clear what that relates to. As I say, the district plan has simply got the zoning requirements across it.
Perhaps picking up for clarification on Councillor Sarank, she talked about the Ngāti Whakaue development. So in some of the appendices there are specific mentions of some, already identified developments that are going to be proposed or going ahead. It's just the impacts on those as they're currently stated. It appeared as though there'd be a bit of work rather than just a find and replace exercise in the DP.
I think that probably leaves us with a question that maybe we just need to come back at the O&M meeting and we'll just follow up on that. My understanding, and probably the key one there, is there was some triggers established around the scale of development, particularly on that plan change, which were based on the REA. And I think, for example, those would now disappear from the plan. So I think you're correct that there is at least one area there where the movement from, say, 800 section development on that particular block to 1400, I think is what its total was based on threshold around the REA. So that would now be removed. And I think going back to the earlier question, that had been modelled with NZTA, so they had anticipated that trigger being removed and the full implications coming into effect within the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Councillor Sturt, then Councillor Donaldson.
Another question, Madam Chair. With the previous discussion we had with the sale of properties in Victoria Street, we had purchased considerable properties linking Victoria Street to that piece jutting out there by the Miggs Gym. Where Turners and Growers used to be. And we've rented out a lot of those. They will be surplus to requirements, will go on the market with Mr. Colley, no doubt, in due course. The other thing, if I may indulge, Madam Chair, I'm delighted from a sport and recreation point of view, with the designation being lifted, that the going through the middle of the Whakarewa rugby fields and the Miggs Gym's building has now been eliminated. I'm delighted for those two organisations who can, along with property developers, but also the residential people, now move forward with their planning. So the question is, what's going to happen with the land and that we have purchased on 30A, especially around Countdown, Turners and Growers' old place, and I just wondered how we're going to handle that.
Through Madam Chair, Mr. Colley has disappeared out of the room, but my understanding is that we were identifying those properties that were surplus, and you have seen those over the last 2 years related to not only the Vic Street arterial decisions, but also a range of other properties. So I think his approach has been to systematically work through the property lists and, where appropriate, bring properties to market following the offer back process. And again, that will be based on timing and any other strategic uses we may have. So he will be able to report more fully about those specific properties.
I just want to follow up my first line of questioning. With the development you were involved with, Dave, in terms of, I think you called it Connect Rotorua, I don't want to, and I'm sure Her Worship, she mentioned it to me yesterday, doesn't want to lose the impact of those people, the affected parties, not only business, not only iwi, not only landowners, but in particular the people out east are going to have some say, direct say, in where the spatial planning and the usage of the Tenai road surface is going to have. So I just need that assurance because I'm a little bit cloudy, and I'm sure that's what we all want.
Yes, I'll ask our CEO to respond to that.
Councillors, absolutely. Certainly you've heard from Stavros that the next phase of the actual business case needs to include the community, and they certainly will be involved. I was just speaking to the planners, and I think there was an interesting discussion prior around one of the reasons for the removal of this designation is to take away the question of uncertainty. And one of the aspects that you saw that play out was with the Ngāti Whakaui block, that there was uncertainty introduced because of uncertainty around the Rotorua Eastern Arterial. It had trigger points and so on, and until that was built, there was a question: could this development actually go ahead? What this decision makes effectively is it removes that uncertainty. So now what we have in our district plan is the area has got the ability to be developed. The triggers are effectively removed by removing the Rotorua Eastern Arterial, which means that the landowners are now free to seek a resource consent to undertake that development. So if you like, that's a good example of how the arterial removal in that designation gives that greater level of certainty that now people can proceed to actually request a resource consent to start undertaking activity. Obviously there would be the Resource Management Act process that would need to be followed through, and we would certainly need to be working with people as to the provision of infrastructure needed. But effectively you're now dealing with an element of certainty as opposed to uncertainty introduced by lack of knowledge of when or if this arterial will be developed.
Councillor Donaldson?
I guess I'm signalling, Madam Chair, that I'd like to get on with the discussion, if that's your wish, and I can possibly answer some of the questions that have been raised. So if I have the floor...
Yes, please do.
So, thank you very much for that. Look, this is administrative housekeeping, but it does herald a new beginning for Rotorua. And not only this project, but just this morning there was a blessing at HEMO for the new $8 million roundabout. So that's additional investment by NZTA into roading infrastructure for Rotorua. So that work is imminent. It was blessed and is underway as from this morning. The 24 million is not all for Tenai Road. It's for connecting all of Rotorua, so some of that is for Amahawa Street treatments, is my understanding as well. There's been a bit of chicken and egg stuff that Councillor McVicker has talked about, the timing of this decision. Look, when this designation was put in place, I was a 13-year-old kid at Matamata College. And, you know, it's been said that we don't want to stuff it up for our grandchildren. I was a grandson then, and now I'm a grandfather. And, you know, in 1962, a Commission of Inquiry recommended the Kaimai Tunnel to increase the ability to get freight to the Port of Tauranga. And within 15 years it was built and commissioned in 1978. So, but this has hung over Rotorua for years, and if it's no case to build it for another 50 years, it will be a century that it was created all this uncertainty and locked up ancestral lands and private owned land. So I think now's the time to do what all of the planning tells us and move on. The issue of the Sala Street Bridge has been raised. That bridge has been approved for 56-tonne heavy high performance motor vehicles, and there are two alternatives for local traffic should it fail or be taken out by a natural disaster, and those are through Sion, and in the past when Hemo Gorge has slipped, we've taken traffic through Whakarewareo Forest to get around that. There's always around the lake, and for heavy traffic there's over the Mamakus and over the Kaimais until we get a replacement in place. Speaking of the high-performance motor vehicles, according to the NZTA, they have been an outstanding success in reducing the number of trucks on our roads. So we now have more freight being carried by the same or fewer motor vehicles. And that is the interregional traffic that this business case is based upon, the majority of it. Currently, NZTA are in the process of putting together a business case to move to 64-tonne trucks of 25 metres in length. So any future growth in freight is going to be absorbed by even larger rigs on our roads, which will be less vehicles and safer. So, you know, we don't have an issue. Now is the time to get on and start our spatial planning, do the improvements that will reduce immediate congestion, but look at what future opportunities lie, and also let private investors and iwi landowners realise their own aspirations and move on with it. So I fully support the whole recommendation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor McDonaldson, for that full explanation there. Are there any, and good information, are there any further? Thank you, Councillor McVicker.
Madam Chair, given that it's clear that this will proceed today, I just asked the question, how much involvement will we as a council have in the design of the Tarawera pinch point, the roundabout? Clearly, I mean, I'm getting the message pretty loud and clear from business people in our city. That is of major concern. It doesn't function today, and we've got to make sure it does function correctly in the future. So I'd like to think that we will have some involvement in the design of the impact that is going to have on that whole structure. And then there's also talk about flyovers, whether that's required at that Tarawera intersection. So appreciate your input there, Stavros.
Well, the project Connect Rotorua, it's a joint project between NZTA and Rotorua Lakes Council. And I can assure this council that nothing will proceed on these roads unless we are happy with the technical specification and the suitability of any solution proposed, not only for the state highway, but how it integrates with our own local network. So we will be heavily involved into the, every detail of the project.
Councillor Maxwell?
So, Madam Chair, we're into
Yes,
the
in
debate
discussion,
and
yes,
in the
please.
voting after that. Yeah. All I want to say is that, well, so far it's been a very good debate. I think the other thing we need to do also is now that we are supporting a four-laning of Tungai Road, that we have to ensure that we get our public relations, our information out to the people that there will be problems. We appreciate that, but for us to work around them, and I think it's just a good information going out there to the people. I think that's important.
Councillor Kent, then your worship.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason I've proposed this motion is because, firstly, the NZTA decision has been made. They don't need it. We're not going to be building any state highways along that route, so there's absolutely no point whatsoever in it remaining. That designation's been in place, as we've heard, since the 60s. We're now in 2015. The potential for using it wasn't going to happen for another 30 years. The time frame we're talking about here is the difference between the first flight that took place and getting to the moon times about 1.5. I think it's about time we put this matter to bed. Tinai Road was gifted as a four-lane highway. I travel it almost every day. 70 or 80% of the time there's not an issue. There were only 3 cars ahead of me round the roundabout this morning coming in. The basic issue that we have is one of poor design of roundabouts, and we've got 2 classic examples, and that's the Tarawera roundabout and the Nongataha roundabout. But there's not a traffic issue on either of those 2 roads that cannot be resolved within the road space with simple means like slip roads, overpasses,
underpasses. There is not a pedestrian crossing issue that can't be dealt with. Overpasses, underpasses. Take a look at the highways across the motorways in Auckland. Crikey, you can have pedestrian overpasses with lifts for a fraction of what we're talking about here. And the difference is now, finally, we can actually get on and have the problem fixed, starting with the Stella Street and the and Tarawera roundabout end, and we can get on with it now instead of dreaming for another 30 years.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Spoken with passion. Thank you. Your Worship.
Well, it's nice to agree with you, Councillor Kent. 100%.
Maybe we should record that in the minutes as a first.
We will. It's not the first, actually. It's not the first. But I do think this is a significant day. And I always said, I remember when we were campaigning prior to this election, that we needed to sort the road and corridor issue. And we needed to do it together in partnership with the community and the hapu. And this is a symbol of where we've got today of that partnership. And that is the Connect project. That is the new style of working together to come up with a solution for the long term for the district of Rotorua. I have to say there's been a lot of misinformation, probably through lack of understanding about NZTA's mechanistic approach to this. And also a lot of emotion, but a lot of emotion on all sides. And I want to acknowledge the hapu that took us carefully through their journey since 1963. It is a long, long time, 53 years. But on that map that we saw before, there was a mustard line, which is the REA. And I'm glad we're not going to be talking about the REA any longer. So the orange light now becomes a green light, which is a green light forward for developing a business case and a spatial plan with our community. And I think that is very symbolic that we're doing that in the third year of this term. I want to thank those that have been on the Rotorua Connect Working Party. They've brought a solution to us. They are the technical experts, not people that are observing from the outside. The experts were within and at that planning table, and I congratulate them. And I go back to the day that Minister Bridges announced this money, and he himself said, we will never be building on the REA, because the Crown knows of the problems with the reserve land and the 20% of unpurchased property. That's reserve land. That belongs to the hapu. So now we're working together going forward, and I think it's worthy of mentioning too that our MP has worked to bring to Minister Bridges the attention that we need a political decision for the long-term road and future investment for Rotorua. And I think we should congratulate him for that. He's worked closely, and he's gone and got the support of Minister Bridges, and it's wonderful that today we're getting rid of the mustard line and moving to the green light, and I think it is very significant. And I want to just note those that have waited for 53 years for certainty. But if Rotorua is going to go ahead, and I know you yourself, Councillor McVicker, talked about the need for subdivisions and the need for growth for housing land, well, we've got it when we've got certainty. And we build that into this road and business case, and we've got that certainty. So it's very significant. Really, technically, all we're doing today is 3. We are just removing this designation from the proposed district plan before making the plan fully operative. I'm in full support of 1, 2 and 3.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Hunt and then Councillor Shirang.
Thank you. I think for me, it's opened it up for development. We've actually moved from uncertainty to action, and this single issue here before us is going to allow that potential to be realised. and we have not had anything this big or this momentous in our community for a very, very long time. It's also going to tidy up from our inner city portfolio, State Highway 30A at our southern edge of the city, and that's a significant part of our revitalisation for our city. And I'm delighted to see on the plan that the first bit is going to be from the Sala Street to Tarawera, because that again is part of that area that is so in need of opening up to deal with the traffic that we know is there. It's a good decision, and I'm really pleased that we're at this table today to support and remove it from our district plan.
Councillor Shrank?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to be voting against 2 and 3, mainly because lack of consultation by NZTA. It's nothing to do with us as a process. It is their process. But there's been little or no consultation with Owhata and Linmore folks. And it's going to have a profound effect upon them. A 4-lane highway to the middle of a residential area that splits the residential area, the problem of school children getting across from the west to the east side. There's all sorts of things. I know, Councillor Kent, they can be dealt with, but it takes time, and they do not move in great rapidity, NZTA. So I don't think that we have studied the alternatives enough either. There could have been other alternatives other than just wipe the Eastern Arterial. I mean, it's 50 plus years of engineering knowledge always agreed that it was the right way to go, so suddenly it's all changed. Trucks and trailers trundling down past, we've got 1, 2, 3 residential villages out there. That's going to be difficult because the road will be so much closer to their residences. So I think it's a premature move. I do believe we can sit on it for a while to leave it as a designation on the planning maps. But I realise it's NZTA, and if they've removed it, they will remove it, but I don't support the removal of the Eastern Arterial.
Thank you, Councillor Shrank. Councillor Gould?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't support the present recommendation as it stands at the time now. I note on the presentation that the designation was lifted by NZTA. I also note that the NZTA, according to the notes, that the NZTA decision cannot be overturned, but I can tell you that any decision can be overturned by a board of people. This road has been in place, has been agreed to by the 18 previous councils of the Rotorua Lakes Council, the Rotorua District Council, or the Rotorua City Council, whatever council was applicable in the time. One business owner said short-term gain, long-term pain. We've got a problem in that we haven't been advised what the design is going to be, whether it's going to be a cycle lane, whether it's going to be a cycle lane on either side, whether the footpaths are going to be on either side. We've got 5 schools on one side of the road heading out towards the airport, just past the airport. You've got kids trying to cross a 4-lane road is going to just make it extremely hard. You've got trucks which are carrying heavier loads. They're going to cause more problems to the roading. The speed limit may be too fast, or the speed limit may need to be reduced. When trucks have accidents, they take a long time to stop, and that's been proved in the press reports recently. More mill traffic. The mill at Lumbercube are putting on more trucks, more congestion on Tenai Road. Now, as Councillor Kent said, today he noticed 3 cars. But what he didn't realise that the schools were not teaching today, they're on holiday. In the last 3 days, the traffic on Tenai Road getting in at 8 o'clock in the morning, at 7:45 in the morning was very light. But when you got the schools operating, the traffic is a lot heavier. That's what we've got to take into account. Not all the U councils have been given enough information on the proposed bypasses, or the main road, or the different problems which have risen in the past. We need to consult with the people of Ngāpuna, Linmore, Owhara, Holdens Bay and Hannahs Bay, not only the residents, but also the business people. It's the business people which have their livelihood in those particular areas. They need to get their goods out of that particular area quickly, faster and safely. With the one route, with if the two bridges at Sion or Sala Street are damaged, it's going to take a lot longer for people to get around the town. With the Rotorua area, with the arterial, it was going to propose another entranceway over the stream. The cost of 24 million at the moment coming from government, as Councillor Donaldson said, it's not all of it's going to go on the eastern, on the Tenai Road. So it's a case of looking for funding for the rest of that funding as quickly as possible. The construction of the road, if your funding is going to be piecemeal, people are going to be annoyed, are going to be get totally frustrated with the length of time it's coming from their residential areas to work and vice versa with business transport. I think we need to really leave it on the table, consult with the residents, and then make the decision accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Gould. I think we've had a fair crack at this. Unless there's someone who might want to speak and introduce something new, then otherwise I'm going to put this to the vote. So I've got three speakers, Mr. Berryman Kemp, Councillor Sturt and Councillor Donaldson. So I'm moving to wrap this one up. Councillor Berryman Kemp. Oh, sorry, Mr. Berryman Kemp.
Oh!
Voted already.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for my new job. Look, really, I think just on behalf of Te Tātou, this decision has been discussed at length, and what I do appreciate as a new member to this committee is the amount of passion and intent regarding this. Again, I join my counterpart in acknowledging the people directly affected and the iwi that are directly affected here. I take on board Councillor Donaldson's point that actually it has been many years and this is an administrative function. So on behalf of Te Tātou, we fully support the removal of the designation. It provides certainty for iwi, it provides certainty for landowners. I believe it will supply certainty for business people as well. And I think in our in what would appear to be a new stage of working together and in terms of partnership, we will have that community engagement that Councillor Sturt has talked about to ensure that we come up with the best decision that we can. So my statement is merely that on behalf of Te Tātou, we fully support items 1, 2 and 3. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I just really quickly wanted to respond to the lack of consultation that's been raised by Councillor Gould. The Connect Rotorua workshops that ran for 12 months included business people, and businesses were mentioned, so Daymar Industries, the Linmore Junction developers, the Deputy Chairman of Destination Rotorua, representing the tourism sector, the Redwood Shopping Centre developer, the Principal of Linmore School, speaking on behalf of the other schools in the East Side area, and as well as representatives of the East Side iwi and humbly, the East Side Buddy Councillor myself. So I think that's pretty wide consultation involved in the process for 12 months. And before that, NZTA conducted numerous hui on marae and met with various interest groups. So, you know, I know there are people in the room who've been in their ear for a number of years on this, and there's been a lot of consultation. So it's not a knee-jerk decision by NZTA.
Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. Councillor Sturt.
Chair, I just wanted to also respond to what Councillor Gould was saying. I mean, and there's no denying it, Mr Deputy Mayor, that there has been consultation up till now. What the people out there, not only the business community that Councillor Gould talked about, but the schools and the people who live out there, they now want to be listened to. They've been hooey, but there's been no doey. And they've been ignored time after time after time. So the people that actually live there, work there, play there, they want to say into how the road is managed, whether there are traffic lights here, overbridges here, etc. That's what Councillor Good was getting at. Madam Chair, there's no problem with Ferry Springs Road. Look, everyone said that that would cause big problems. It's 4-laned. Lake Road, 4-laned. Fabulous. There is a lot of as I think you said, Madam Chair, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I have already got the undertaking from Stavros and JP, and I got the feeling from the CEO that the consultation will occur. The management of the road and how it is designed will go out for consultation, and as long as I'm around this table, I'll be damn sure that does occur. So I support what you're saying, Councillor Gore.
Thank you. Thank you. I will be voting for 2 and 3 as well. I know we have said that over the years we've looked in and the decisions have rested with NZTA, but there's no doubt in my mind that over the years this district council has aided and abetted the continued inequality for citizens out east, and I particularly refer to the 3 hapu from Ngāpuna. There have been decisions made by our council that have not made it easy for those people. For that designation to be in place for such a long time, such a long period of time, at least today we are hopefully righting something that was put wrong many years ago. So I am going to, Councillor Kent, you do have as the mover, you can speak if you'd wish. Have the last.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the matter's been thoroughly canvassed.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded. I'll put 2 and 3. I'll put them separately. That the committee recommends to Council to support New Zealand Transport Agency in their decision to uplift the Rotorua Eastern Arterial designation. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Contrary? I'll call for a division on this one, please. All those in favour, please raise your right hand. Against? Against? Ms. Gould, McVicker and Shireen.
So through the chair, those voting for the resolution were Mayor Chadwick, Donaldson, Hunt, Kent, Maxwell, Rukawa Tate, Sturt, Tapsell, Wepper, Mr Berryman Kemp and Ms Morrison. Those against, Councillor Gould, McVicker and Serene.
Thank you. I'll put 3. That the committee endorse the removal of the designation from the proposed district plan before making the plan fully operative. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Thank you. I'll call for a division on that one as well. All those in favour, please say aye. Please raise your right hand. Same. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the discussion today, councillors. Thank you. I propose that we take a 15-minute break and that we do have some morning tea out there, so if some people from the gallery would like to join us, please do. Take a 15. While we